So, as you guys are aware, I've been I do my own games these days. I've been an independent game developer for the last couple months, and one of the jobs, the many hats you have to wear, includes composer. And I've actually had to write some of my own music. Yeah, hats. Throwback.
Stingy hats.
Stingy hats. I actually didn't even think about that.
That's what I was thinking about.
That's
honest.
But I thought we were talking about Dota again.
Some of the stingy hats you have to wear?
Yes. So, composer. I've been doing a lot of my own original music, and it's actually a lot of fun. And but it made me think, soundtracks in games, they'll sometimes make a big impact. Like, what are some of your favorite soundtracks? For me, I think my all-time favorite would have to be Halo. The first Halo, I think, was maybe the first game that had a soundtrack that just totally blew me away. I thought it was fantastic. It got me really hyped up during points. It was just used really effectively, and it was just a great orchestral sound piece with the Gregorian chant and all that too. It was just fantastic. What are some of your guys' favorites, Ethan?
I would say that probably Halo 1 was my all-time favorite, but one that I find very notable is Bastion. And Bastion, I think, is a solid game altogether, but specifically notable to me was the soundtrack, partially because I was introduced to the game Bastion because of his soundtrack by a coworker and friend who was just listening to him, and he enjoys listening to soundtracks, and specifically he really liked Bastions, and so then he's played some for me, and oh wow, this is a really good sound, like what is this? And he got me into it. So then, it's even to the point where I listen to it while I work, without the game at all. But definitely adds a good flavor to the game. I think I really do appreciate when games invest some effort and resources into the soundtrack. And I think that was really evident with Halo, the original Halo. It was one of the first games that I think it utilized like an orchestral soundtrack. It had the Gregorian chant. It was just completely epic, and it gave a cinema. It made the movie feel it made the game feel almost like a movie at times. Like I remember very specifically, there's a cutscene where you just fought yourself. You're on the Halo. You just fought your way past like a bunch of elites, and you can tell things are getting a little weird. And you're about to open a door, and it's right before you're introduced to the Flood. You haven't met the Flood yet. And you go to open this door, and there's like a high-string violin, a high-string cello. It's like, and so you're building it, anxiety.
It's Sting. That's what they call that.
Sting. And then, sure enough, you open this door, and then a private falls into your arms. You catch him, and then you end up looking at his video recording that he had, and it explains. And then, like, for me, that was like a movie for me. I had an enjoyable experience.
That's not scary. That's pants-poopingly scary. What that is right there.
No, but yes, for me that's Halo. And then obviously Halo has the tribal drums for the action and the jungle scenes, like, and you're like, oh, I'm supposed to be running right now. Oh, I'm driving the Warthog. Shoot.
And that's actually one of the interesting things about soundtracks like that, because whenever you're not doing what the game wants you to do, and the soundtrack is being all epic, it just seems really absurd. So like you got the tribal drums, and then I'm like,
I'm hiding behind a rock.
Exactly, hiding behind a rock, or like getting my Warthog stuck up on a cliff somewhere, wedged in between some rocks.
Yeah, I don't know the specific numbers, but I'm pretty sure that Halo was one of the first ones that actually spent a sizable amount of their budget investing into developing the soundtrack. So it wasn't by accident.
Well, there have been some big soundtracks, I think, before Halo. The original Quake, Trent Reznor did the soundtrack, and actually all the sound design on that, and that was really cool. I don't know how much they paid for that, though. But Nine Inch Nails was already big at the time, so I don't think it was super cheap. What about you, Matt? What's your favorite soundtrack, do you think?
So, I've picked multiple favorites throughout all my gaming, but one that I keep coming back to is Final Fantasy VIII. It sounds really cheesy, but you have to. I think most people will agree that Final Fantasy VIII soundtrack is probably the best. The only people that will say it's not are the people that really love Final Fantasy VII. But there's a big step in quality from that And I know everybody's gonna bash Eyes on Me as the obvious one that everybody hates, and I'm gonna say that does nothing for me. I will say that the other bits, the great use of sound, really conveys the tone and almost tells a story on its own.
Sure, I agree. Because in Final Fantasy VIII, nothing tells the story better than a stupid J-pop music video by Ayumi Hamasaki or whoever the hell. Totally sets the tone for an epic RPG.
It's more, people take it what it was, but I took it as more of a love story.
Well, you're probably right. Full disclosure, I've never played. I don't like Final Fantasy, the series. The last one I played was 3. So, or the U.S. version is 3.
There might be bias because 8 was the first one I played. I only ever played 7 after that. I didn't play any other ones. A lot of people will hate me for not playing 6 or 9.
Mm-hmm.
But, I think I've listened to the other soundtracks, and I will say that 8 I still think has the best one. It's the one I like the most. Other than that, though, I really enjoy this. Here's this gonna sound. I think StarCraft has a really good. The first one has a really good soundtrack. Well, when I say really good, I should say only the Terran one. The Protoss one's okay.
Much of it, to be honest.
I think that's the beauty of it, in that it did its job so well in being like almost. I wouldn't say mindless because that makes it sound really bad.
No, it's ambient though. It's sort of.
It's really good ambient music. It conveys each faction well. Mm-hmm. How each one goes, because Zerg has this kind of I don't really enjoy it, but it has this really gross sounding soundtrack with it, whereas the Protoss conveys this very higher intelligence mythic type of thing. And I want to ask you guys one thing: is that just this is our musical taste, but I think we've all missed some of the most important soundtracks that were conceived, and that people don't go and they don't go look up. At least not at the same rate. They don't look up Bastions. They don't look up Halos as much as they do all of the Nintendo franchise
Oh, absolutely.
ones.
Yeah. Chip tunes and stuff like that. But, those games are, because that's actually a lot closer to the type of music I, wrote for, Landmore. But, I don't know. There's a big difference. The music didn't make those games. It was certainly...
It didn't make them.
And everybody remembers...
But they became iconic.
Absolutely. They are super cool.
And even then, I would say, Super Mario 64, the music in that was phenomenal.
I know this is blasphemy, but I never played Super Mario 64.
But even the NES Mario sound is
iconic for sure.
Yeah, it's absolutely iconic.
But
is it iconic because the game itself was so good, or was the music actually good?
Does it have to be an or? It could be both.
Do you think it was though? I
think so. I think this is the best evidence. When somebody gives you that low pitched rumble, you already think back to dropping into a cave for the first time.
But what if it was awful? What if the music was awful, but the game was still really good?
So you're telling me if we put that bit and it played every time you dropped into a hole on the ET Atari game, you're telling me that would be iconic?
It would not. I'm telling you, it wouldn't be iconic because nobody remembers.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. But if you went and you had Mario's game played, did the same thing.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't know. I give more credit to. I think a soundtrack like Halo, I think, was clearly more. I don't know.
You can say that. That's true, but we're not going to compare 8-bit Mario to Halo soundtrack.
That's not fair at all. But
I would say something maybe. I wouldn't say 64, but that's my favorite. I don't know if people really enjoyed Super Mario Sunshine soundtrack or something.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's a little bit of apples and oranges. It's also I don't really compare a soundtrack like Halo's to the Guitar Heroes or any game that has mainstream.
I think it's between original and just a soundtrack.
Well, but even a soundtrack can be really important. Like the Grand Theft Auto games, I think. Have really nailed
it's
it
good.
With their soundtrack.
Vice City was really well done because they played all 80s songs. They had Billie Jean on there, and it perfectly fit what they were trying to convey.
Yeah.
But if we want, I'm going to come back because I'm not done with this battle. If we want to compare Halo, we can compare that to Zelda, same style.
Mm-hmm.
People, I think a lot more people, whether we like to admit it or not, are going to
the same style as
the new Zelda.
I don't know.
Twilight Princess Zelda.
I never heard
I thought you might be talking about Ocarina, and that's a little different because music and sound is a very important aspect of that game.
Right.
And I'm still going to say the soundtrack to Master Chief or whatever.
I think a lot of people will disagree with you.
I
Those
would agree
people are
with Jim.
dirty
but-
fanboys. And believe me, I'm no fanboy of Halo. I'm not a huge fan of that series. All I'm saying is the music is fantastic.
I'm gonna say the music was very good in that too.
Yeah. Genres,
well,
the
okay.
digital.
That's what I want.
Sound.
Speaking of like the more pop soundtracks, though, I just thought of this actually. Hotline Miami. I don't know if you guys played that. I think it's an amazing game, and the soundtrack is a huge part of that game too. It's just so fantastic. I can't recommend that game enough. You guys have not played Hotline Miami?
You just like trying to flash your indie cred at us right now?
No, it's really good. It was on Xbox. It was on the Live Arcade.
Again with the indie cred? Nobody.
It's
Nobody plays Live Arcade.
It came out like 3 years ago. It's really, you should play it. Give it if it's like $5.
I'm not really into Pokemon, Jim.
Hey.
So, actually, did you actually create the music for Land War?
Yes, most of it.
I actually enjoyed that so much. Like the first time I went to it, I got to the page and I heard that. I go, where did he get this from? He sampled. This sounds so familiar. I was like, where did he sample this from? And I just laughed my butt off because like it was like, whoa. And I was like, this is awesome, but like I legitimately waited to like let the song like stop.
I think it loops infinitely.
And well, that's what I found out. I'm also at the library, I'm working on other stuff, and I'm like, I'm going to listen to this while I do something else, and like whatever, because of the browser, it would stop playing the sound as soon as I've lost focus of the window.
Oh, right.
So I was like, I listened to it for a little bit. I thought that was really well done. I think there's something to be said though about budget when it comes to soundtracks. Like if you're going to do, like we mentioned earlier with the Halos, like actually investing money into an orchestra, but also there's a cost in including pop or mainstream music. Like if you're going to pay for the royalties of like Papa Roach or Korn.
Well, that's like for a game of Mexall 2 or something.
Mexall 2.
That's really interesting because HD remake of San Andreas came out, and they actually pulled not all the music in the game is in that. And actually a bit of a controversy because if you bought San Andreas on Steam, and maybe some of the consoles, you automatically got this HD remake. You had no choice. It would upgrade like a patch. It would patch it over, and you actually lost some of the music you used to have in the game. Actually, some features went away based on because of licensing is so expensive. So I guess that's like the downside of using a pop soundtrack for your game.
Yeah, licensing and stuff. And
all the licensing.
And it's
the Rock Band's going through that right now too.
I personally
Their DLC store is getting relicensed all the time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, and nobody anticipated, I think, for something like San Andreas, like, who thought of something HD remake? Whoever thought that was going to be a thing.
Yeah.
Nobody anticipated that 10 years down the line, we're going to re-release this game.
I personally think it's somewhat dated. Like Jim mentioned, Mexall 2, it's a good game. But like if I go back, at the time I remember being like, wow, this song is on the radio right now. This is a song I like, and it's an action scene, and it's you got this rock and roll sound to it. I'm blowing stuff up, and it's saying I'm getting away with murder, and I really am getting away with murder. And then, but like if I go back and play that game now, I'm like, I don't have the same musical taste, and I'm not like, oh yeah, Papa Roach, not tonight, Papa Roach, or anybody, but it's a dated game. When I think about that, I go, oh yeah, I was playing that in the 90s. Like, oh, nice, it's a good game.
And I think that's part of, if you're going to use pop music, I think you do have to be really careful about that because it absolutely does date your game. I bought Burnout Paradise for the PC pretty recently because I love the Burnout series. And, the first thing, like the title track of that game is Avril Lavigne, and it's like, this is just, it almost takes me totally out of the game. Like, this is an awful soundtrack. And I'm sure at the time, this is pop and kind of fun, but like that stuff gets old real quick. It's the same it's like at a wedding. Like you don't want to play a bunch of super pop music because when you look at your wedding video or whatever it is, it's gonna just seem so incredibly dated. Those references.
Unless your wedding was in the 70s.
Sure, yeah, I guess so. But I don't know. There's I think with the Grand Theft Auto series, they actually do.
I think they have something going on with that where they have such great variety that it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You get what you want.
Variety, and also I think they pick the right songs that are dated, but they're. I just did air quotes, and that's stupid because you can't see it. But these are songs that are still going to be good, in the future. Like, Pet Shop Boys in GTA 5. It's my favorite song, West End Girls, and can't get enough of that. And that'll always be a good song. It was good in the 80s, and it's good now. And Matt's disagreeing with me, but he's wrong. So, that's all I have to say about soundtracks.
That's all I have to say about that.
We good?
I think one other thing we can look at is, it's neat that games can produce these kind of compilations that are then being resold as a collection. Like there's a GTA 5, a vinyl box set, I believe.
Yeah.
That you can get all that stuff for. It's expensive, but if you're really into it, you can get that. That's pretty neat to see.
And I guess I'd be remiss if one of the best soundtracks ever for the Genesis Comic Zone, which actually my uncle did the music for, so that's why I have to plug that. But it's really cool. It actually is neat sound. Basically, he ripped off a bunch of sorry,
don't give out the secrets.
it's very
heavily influenced
by like grunge. It's very Nirvana-esque kind of stuff, except 16-bit.
You mentioned how that Grand Theft Auto game plays some of your favorite music, and that doesn't necessarily date it. I feel similar to BioShock. BioShock has a soundtrack that did a lot for me. You're coming into it does influence the atmosphere quite a bit.
Absolutely.
There's a very specific what's that called, gramophone sound to it. And I like that kind of music. Matt and I are actually big vinyl and record player listeners and hobbyists. Yeah. And we are actually going to a record. We're going to make a road trip tomorrow and make a day out of going to some record stores.
Hard. Cool.
And when I got into that first little capsule to go visit whatever that world is, Rapture. And in fact, they're playing the song, and I'm like, I know this song.
Yeah.
and it's like you can hear the pops and crackles of the vinyl, but then not just that, like, because that definitely puts you in the mood of what this is about to be, but then also like when you're about to harvest or save your first the first little sister. Yeah. Like there is again that what's it called, Sting, ooh, this is epic, or you're hiding around the corner and there's the shadows flickering of an evil scientist that's butchering some poor cadaver. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why people like the environment or atmosphere of BioShock so much, is the soundtrack was dead on.
Yeah, it was, yeah. Am I the only one who played the Saints Row series with only using the classic radio station?
I haven't played Saints Row.
Oh, well. You play Saints Row? Well, no, there's no reason to go down this avenue. I know. I always played, when I played I love Saints Row.
I hear it's a really good game.
I think it's a better series than the GTA, but I always had the classical because I like the juxtaposition. It was a good joke of me running over people and doing crazy crap while there's classical music playing.
That is a good
Beethoven
point.
classical?
Yeah, like Beethoven.
It is a good point. There's a movie out recently called Begin Again that it's all about music, and he's like, see how how music adds a completely different tone to a situation, and they're sitting in a park watching street performers, which when it's the normal New York sounds is like, this is kind of sad, this is like bothersome, annoying. Then they put in some headphones that's playing classical music, and it's like, oh, it's artistic. This is like a silent movie now all of a sudden. And I think the game that's very interesting that you bring up that beating people up to that sound. Some movies have used that device of juxtaposition and being like, wow, it can actually make it seem more horrible. Some things that you're seeing, or like a children's song, overlaying that with like a child's melody. But it's funny that you talk about Saints Row. I do remember that game now. I actually was confusing it. I thought it was one of the GTAs. They were so similar in my mind. I thought it was GTA Saints Row. But
the first Saints Row especially was very much like, hey, we're not even trying to hide the fact that we're totally GTA. But I feel they differentiated themselves, especially when GTA 4 came out. Exactly. Tonally, GTA 4 was so stilted and so took itself so seriously. Yeah. Whereas Saints Row was just
It went in the opposite direction. It was like, this is crazy. We're
we're fun.
Yeah.
Which is, imagine that. Weird. But so anyway, let's end on that note. Thank you, Matt and Ethan.
Thank you, Jim.
You guys got
It was a
anything you want to
pleasure.
plug? Any plugs? No? Projects you can go and plug? Plug is where you talk about things that you want people to know about.
I know. I don't know.
No? Okay.
Jim makes games.
I do.
Yeah, I like Jim's games. I've been plugging Jim's games around.
Thanks, Ethan. I'm going to cut this out.
That's
All right. And I'll cut back in with, all right, thank you guys. It's great.
Thank you.
See you guys next time
All right, yeah.
on Stingycast.